You see a little nick or two on me when I have a shave of the morning. Doesn't really hurt them all that much. Sometimes, of course, there's a little bit bigger nick, and shearers usually carry something like this. It's a flesh needle. And just sometimes, not very often, just sometimes the sheep kicks at the wrong time or something goes wrong and we do a little bit deeper cut and we have to stitch the sheep up. Interestingly, that book over there is called Stitched Up, but it's not about stitching up the sheep. Sometimes though, it's not the sheep that needs stitching up, it's the shearer. And I've had to be stitched up, but not with that needle. I've gone to the doctor. Yes, there's been some shearers that have been cut so badly they haven't been able to shear again. This equipment that we're using here, very sharp, very dangerous. Sometimes the sheep kicks it out of the shearer's hand and I've seen it go flying through the air like a missile. And if you're in the way of it, you could be very, very seriously injured. Now, David here, concentrating on shearing the sheep's hind leg, and you will notice that his left hand is working the whole time. It's stretching skin, he uses fingers, he uses his thumb, his whole hand to prepare the wool, the skin rather, for the handpiece to come along. This is highly skilled work, ladies and gentlemen. A lot of times people think of the shearer as someone who just has to have a lot of brawn and little brain. But this is highly skilled, and the shearers, I think, that do the best to make the most successful shearers are the thinkers, because so much is in technique, getting it right. I've been in sheds sometimes where I've seen shearers going like a thrashing machine and getting nowhere. In fact, one shearer I shore with, sometimes you could see him do about 4 or 5 blows before he even hit the wool. And by the time he'd shorn the second sheep for the day, perspiration was running all over his spectacles. He needed windscreen wipers. Now this is highly competitive. Every shearer's out there to beat the other fella and to be the top gun. And some go to extremes to do it. Now one particular shearer was just overdoing it one day, trying to go far too fast. He'd run in and out of the pen to get the next sheep, and if the shed hands didn't have his wool away, he'd just knock them flying. Shed hands don't like that, and these shed hands were getting rather tired of it. And at afternoon smoko, one of the shed hands came in with a box. He said, "We have got something in this box that'll slow him down." And do you know what they had in the box? They had a sleepy lizard, big one. So they worked out a plan that when the shearer rushed in the shed, they would whip off his handpiece and put the lizard in its place. In went the shearer. Out he came. Pulled on his shearing machine. Grabbed the lizard. Picked it up. Just about to start the belly with the lizard, and open came its mouth and out came its big blue tongue. Nearly grabbed him on the chin. The shearer got that lizard and he threw it from one side of the shed to the other, let the sheep go back in the pen and chased the shed hand around the shed. Don't think he can catch him. Now would you believe it, ladies and gentlemen, you've never probably ever seen or heard of this before, that on this shearing board, and David might just switch off and show us, we have the lizard. There he is, shearing with a lizard. Have you ever seen anything like that before in your life? Anyone got a camera? There he goes. I don't think he's getting much wool off. But would you believe it that yesterday when I told the story about the lizard, this morning we come in and the lizard had come into the shed. So we thought we'd put a bit of life into our story today. So you're probably some of the first people that's ever seen a lizard going over the body of a sheep. But that's some of the fun you can have in the shearing sheds, and some of those stories are written up in that great book over there. So we continue with our shearing. David Brooker from Lucendale, and very soon you're going to see machine shearing and some hand shearing. As I said, every shearer has this ambition to beat the other fellow. And you know where most of the tallies occur? In the hotel of the night. The shearers get in there and their tallies get bigger and bigger and bigger. But some go a bit overboard with this. I knew a shearer who boasted of an enormous tally. But you know how he got that tally? He picked out about 10 of the best sheep of the mob, went as fast as he could for 15 minutes, stopped, got out a pencil and paper, worked it out, how many sheep he would have shorn in a day if he could have kept going. And it was a phenomenal figure, and he was telling everyone that was his talent. But now here's a beautifully shorn sheep by David Brooker from Lucendale, another wonderfully shorn sheep from the Oria Cowie stud. And we thank the Dalla family for supplying us with their stud sheep. So here we go. How many we got left, Dave?
Well, a truckload.
There's a truckload left. Well, very soon he'll do one more, and I'm just going to talk to you about my shears that I'm going to shear a sheep